vanaand in jou toy, die wat al gekeet het. Ek is hier vandag om te praat oor boere en ongediertes, die beheermetodes, die voordele, die nadele en baie van die wetgewing wat met daarvoor met die metodes te doen het. En dan alles wat jy moet weet wat gif. Soos Kobus gesê het, ons is hier so om vir julle te sê, my Afrikaans en Engels is maar Engels en Graafrikaans as ons dit doen in die Karoo, so verskoon my nou nie. So ons praat 'n bietjie oor gif en die wetgewing wat rondom gif gebruik is. En ja, so dit sal help as ek nou hierdie so voor ons nou voorgaan, ek wil net myself sê wie ek is en wat ek doen en hoekom ek is nie die beste persoon om hierdie wet of hierdie subject nou voor te stel, maar dit het nou my gekies, so dis nou wat dit is. Ek is grootgemaak op plaas, daar's ek en my broer in die kraal saam met die aansies, ek is baie besig daar. En dis nou 'n paar jaar terug wat ek nou landwerk gedoen het. Ek kom van 'n lang lyn van skaapboere. My oupa grootjie se pa het die braastelstoet begin op Kleinfontein-plaas en dan my oupa grootjie oorgevat en die pure Kleinfontein merino stoet begin en dan my ouma en my oupa het die PJ merino stoet gedoen. En dan my pa het oorgevat, hy het niks van stoetboerdery gehou, hy het nie van beeste in afval gehou, maar ons het altyd aangegaan met merino skape. En ja, so ons het gesien, ons is Oktoberberg van 1950, ons familie was Oktoberberg van 1950, ek is van Praag-Renet, ek het wildplantbestuur gestudeer en ek werk, soos al gesê, in die Karoo Safe Zone. Ek hou van enigiets op 'n plaas, ek hou niks van 'n stad nie. En dan my gunsteling dier is my hond, my brak, Percy. En dan my gunsteling kos is hoendervlekke en knoffelbrood, as dit by 'n braai is. Ek hou nie van spangekookte kos. En my motto in land bestaan nie as jy verskoning nie. Dis of jy weet nie of jy wil nie. So dis nou hoekom ek dit kan sê is oor die roofdier probleem. So nou dat julle 'n bietjie meer van my ken en sien waarvandaan ek kom. Ek gaan 'n bietjie oor die metodes wat ons gebruik, wat ons nou al klaar weet van. Soos ons weet, shooting, denning, die honde, ons gebruik gif of coyote getters, ek dink hulle doen hulle is gifskieters. So ek kan nie nou baie oor hierdie goedjies praat nie, want daar is ander dinge wat ons van nou praat. Maar die voordele en die nadele, ek dink almal ken van die voordele van alles wat die jakkals gaan doen. Dis maar die voordeel. Maar die nadele is dat as jy skiet, dit maak ook 'n plek vir meer jakkals. Want jakkals is soos honde, daar's 'n main jakkals en dan die ander jakkals hy bly weg van daai main jakkals. En as jy nou die main jakkals skiet, dan kom jy anders in en dan begin hulle om te beklei vir daai territory en dan het jy 10 jakkals wat jy nou net een gehad het. Sommige van die jakkals wat ons skiet, is nie eintlik meeste van die tyd is hy, maar soms van die tyd is hy nie die een wat die skade gemaak het. Soms is hy die een wat daar so rondloop. So ons weet nie wie the problem maker is. Dit is hier, soms van die jakkalskieters of die jakkalsjagters, hulle moet hulle eie kos op die tafel sit. So hulle gaan meer geld vra om hulle te skiet. En dit vat tyd, want die boer is besig deur die dag en dan in die aand jy uitgaan saam met die jakkalsjagters tot van die tyd. En waar kry jy verslaaf? By die honde, sommige van die tye as die honde nie reg gekry het nie, gaan hulle ander diere doodmaak. En ons het gesien daarso waar ek ry in Graafrenet, ons is tussen die berge soos hierso ons is so tussen die berge en die honde het regtig gesukkel om op te vang met die jakkals. So ja, en dan die gif. Die ding met gif uitsit is, ons kan dit op enige manier doen. As ons dit nie net daarso sit, as ons op die draad sit of onder die grond of baie dinge probeer, ons kan nie altyd sê, hy gaan nie 'n ander dier doodmaak nie. En 'n boer wil nie uitgaan om 'n ander dier doodmaak, hy wil die flip en jakkals doodmaak. En dan die gifskieters, dit het baie goed gegaan. Die Department van Agriculture en Environmental Affairs in die Oos-Kaap het eintlik training courses gedoen met die gifskieters en hulle het gesê dit werk baie goed. Maar soms van die tye as jy nie die jakkals optel sodra hy doodgaan, dan kan ander diere hom eet en dan dra ander diere skrik of dood. Volgende. Dan is daar die cage traps. Baie mense gebruik hulle werk nie so mooi vir jakkals nie, maar ons het dit gebruik op ons plaas met rooi katte. En as ons nou 'n mooi byt gebruik het en ons het altyd 'n CD of 'n stuk folie opgesit dat die rooi kat ons sien. Dit het baie goed gewerk. Maar ons het nie te veel skade met rooi katte nie. Ek weet nie of dit dieselfde hierso is nie. So ons main probleem was die jakkals. Die jakkals gaan nie sommer in 'n bok kry nie. En dan is die ander die foot traps, so nie die slaghuisers nie wat so skerp is dat die hond sy eie been kan afbou nie. Dis 'n sagte ding, maar dit is labor intensive. So as u nou 'n mens het om hulle uit te stel en alles, hulle moet getrein word om dit te doen. Anders kan hulle die duikertjies en die steenbokkies en alles vang. En dan is daar die killer traps wat in die draad hang. En sodra dit deur dit gaan, slaan hy hom op sy borskas. En so ons kan nie sê soos ek gesê 'n steenbok of 'n duikertjie gaan gevang word nie. Dan so dis nou die lethal metodes wat ons gebruik, want daar is ander mense wat nou oor die ander metodes moet praat.
Dis tog dan net voor die voortgaan. Dit is wat jy op die plaas gebruik. Ek wil net dit duidelik maak. Dis nie metodes wat ons aanbeveel as
dis nou metodes wat al
ons sê ons sommer oorsig te gee van metodes. Ja.
Anyway, die wetgewing. So baie mense vra my maar in NEMA of NEMA sê dit en dan op die Nature Conservation Ordinance sê dit en dan as jy die hunting proclamation kry vir die seisoen, dan sê dit ietsie heeltemal anders. So baie mense sê hoe kan ons nou die wetgewing volg as hy nie dieselfde ding sê nie. So hy werk in so 'n step-by-step proses. Die eerste ding is NEMA of NEMA. Hy is die National Environmental Management Act of die National Environmental Management Act and Biodiversity Act. So die doel van NEMA is to provide for cooperative environmental governance by establishing principles for decision making and to promote cooperative governance and procedures for coordinating environmental functions. So hy sit nou die principles uit. Dan die Nature Conservation Ordinance of 1974. Hy vat daai principles wat NEMA uitgesit het en hy consolidate en hy maak die wet. Hy sê, okay, ons sien wat hulle wil doen, dit is nou die wet vir dit en dit en dit. En dan die Provincial Hunting Proclamation. So die Oos-Kaapse Hunting Proclamation is nie altyd dieselfde as die Wes-Kaapse nie en hy is nie dieselfde as die Noord-Kaapse nie. So ons volg ons provincial se ene wat NEMA en die Nature Conservation Ordinance they kept it in mind when they were making it. Elke jaar doen hulle dit ook om te sien, okay, as daar te veel van springbokke gejag is, dan sê hulle ook, jy mag nie springbokke jag op hierdie tyd nie, en jy mag net een dag kry. So hulle noem die daily ban. So dit is to regulate the utilization of game. En it takes into account the jackal as well. So in the Nature Conservation Ordinance, hulle sê dat jag is by any means whatsoever, to kill, capture, attempt to kill or capture, to pursue, to follow or drive with the intent to kill or capture, to shoot at, to poison, to lie in wait for, or to willfully disturb an animal. Dit is nou jag. En dan, so the prohibited ways of hunting is by using fire or poison, by using an artificial light, to hunt from or on a public road, by means of a trap, during the night or 1 hour after sunset to 1 hour before sunrise. An automatic weapon by a weapon in a public place, so you can't shoot a rat that's running around the stall with a gun, the stall with a gun. An automatic weapon by means of an injecting device filled with poison, by means of a dog, except for bird hunting, by means of a motor vehicle or aircraft. So a lot of this stops us from catching or killing jackal, because a lot of it we do at night. We use a light, we do it on the road, we use a motor vehicle to do it. So this is what the Nature Conservation Ordinance says. But then we go on to the legality according to the Western Cape's Hunting Proclamation. So this is this year's. A black-backed jackal you can hunt year-round and the daily bag limit is 1. But on the far right-hand side you see suspensions of section 29. Section 29 is where it says what the prohibited hunting methods are. If it says suspension of section 29, that's where it's saying, okay, we no longer take into account this method. So that they're basically saying you are now allowed to use cage traps, even though it says on the conservation ordinance you may not. It's now saying you may use cage traps for caribou. As for cage nature though, shooting during daylight hours is allowed and it doesn't require permits. But corn shooting, soft traps, soft protection collars and sniff dogs always require a permit. So any kind of other method that you're using, you have to apply for a permit. And then leopards, there's no permits, so you'll have to contact, if you have a problem with leopards, you'll have to contact Cape Nature and find that out. Okay, in the Northern Cape, everything is game, apparently. So in black-backed jackal, you can hunt them year-round. There's no restriction on black-backed jackal. You can hunt at night, you can use spotlights, you can use a cage trap, a gin trap, you can dart them if you really want to. You can hunt them in captivity, you can drag them, you can use dogs, and you can use a lure. So all of these things, they're basically saying, ignore what the Nature Conservation Ordinance is saying, you are allowed to use those things. Then, in the east, no, why did you back? Northern Cape continued, that's chukma, baboon, and rodents, for those who use it. So just note by rodents, it says poison, but only a poison that is registered as a rodenticide. You're not allowed to use any other poison except a rodenticide for rodents. Then the Eastern Cape. In the Eastern Cape, you are allowed to use poisons, but you're only allowed to use a poison that's registered specifically for that. So we'll get a little bit more onto the use of poisons and the legality about that. And then you're allowed to use gin traps, you're allowed to use dogs, but everything that you're doing there, you still have to apply for a permit for. Caracal is the same thing, bush pig is the same thing, you're just not allowed to use poisons. Next one. Okay. So in NEMA and NEWA and the hunting ordinance, prohibition on laying of poisons. Subject to the provisions of the subsection 2, no person shall lay or cause to be laid or allowed to be laid any poison at any place where it is likely or in such a manner that it may be assimilated or ingested by a wild animal. So basically, you cannot put poison out if it even has a slight chance of hurting or killing an animal. It's also it's a prohibited way of hunting. No person shall, unless he is the holder of a permit authorizing him to do so, hunt any animal by means of fire or poison. I don't know who uses fire to hunt an animal, but poison is what we're talking about. And then the other thing is means of the any device which injects an intoxicating or narcotic agent into poison. Unless, as we said in the hunting proclamation, there is a section where the province may suspend the sections from any ordinance, in which case it is allowed. But you still have to apply for a permit. It's just to regulate the amount of poisons that are going out and all those kind of things. Volgende, gif. Alles wat jy moet weet met gif. Okay, so when we talk about poisons, in the government they say poison is anything that you use to kill something. But sometimes we refer to poisons as something else. When we talk about a poison, we're saying it's a substance that can cause illness and or death of a living organism when it is introduced or absorbed into their system. A chemical is a compound or substance which has been artificially purified, and a pesticide is a substance used for destroying insects or other organisms harmfully cultivated to land. Blah, blah, blah. They sound exactly the same, but the application of the poison is the difference. So how you use it is what defines it. When we say poison, we're saying it's used to kill intentionally. Some people use dazzle to kill crows. A chemical is used to increase or benefit your production on your farm. So some people send acid through their dripper systems to prevent the growth around their pipes of their dripper systems. That's a chemical. And then a pesticide is used to manage the pests and insects and your crops. So when you put out Ratex to kill rodents in your sheds, or when you spray Doom to kill flies, or when you spray Roundup to prevent weeds, that is using a pesticide. So those are the difference. So we don't mind you using pesticide for your plants, we don't mind about you using chemicals to make sure that your production on your farm is benefiting, but it becomes a poison when you're using it to kill something intentionally. So the different types of poisons people get and that I know that people use is strychnine, Cooper's which is very, very old, but some people use it still now, and diazinon or dazzle, which is what we mostly use for blowfly. I don't know if we have blowfly in the area, but this is what a lot of people use. And then Tenic, 1080 and Latex. So 1080 is a little bit of it's quite a complex issue because the people who sell it have got a permit to sell it. By all means they can sell it, they've got it registered. But you as the farmer have to apply for a permit in order to use it. Then Why do we worry about poisons? So I know that the farmer is always angry with us if we say please don't use poisons, because I have heard from farmers that I'm friends with, it's the only method that's working for them. It's the only thing that's working for them, and I'm not saying this, sorry, Gobus, I'm not saying it to promote it, I'm saying what I know for a fact. But this is why we worry about poisons, is the legality. We don't want the farmer, because he's just trying to survive, to get into trouble with the law and then have to pay a huge fine and end up losing his farm. We don't want that. We also worry about environmental safety. Poisons have a knock-on effect in the system. There are places where people used to throw their Dazzle and to throw, I think it's double Benex, where they even call those drifts the Benex drifts because they can still smell it. It's got an environmental effect. Human safety. If you've got children or plain children running around and they pick up this thing, they don't know what it is, and they put it in their mouth, it's incredibly toxic. I met a farmer who was trying to mix 1080 and he poisoned himself. So we don't want the farmers to do that to themselves. And also the target the specificity of the targets. Poisons are dangerous because they are designed to kill. And when you put it out, and you put it out in an unsafe place, or if you do it wrong, it's going to kill something that's not supposed to die. And it's fine when we lose 1 or 2 animals here and there. But if every farmer loses 1 or 2 animals, we're losing a very large amount of species. I work for the Vulture Safe Zone project, and the biggest problem with vultures' population at the moment is poison. Not so much here in the Karoo, but up north they have poisoning incidents where they're losing up to 500 vultures in a poisoning event. We don't want to do that. We want to try and keep our nature as natural as possible while still benefiting the farmer.
I think there's a fifth reason that you don't have there, and that is that the market is changing its attitude towards the use of poisons. So we find that internationally and other supply chain markets are getting more and more antsy about the use of poison and specific methods of destroying predators, because they are concerned that their consumers will have an issue with it. So I think it's just something to flag that is something that's coming our way. Whether you like it or whether you agree with it or not, it's a reality, it's happening. So consumers are rightly or wrongly more sensitive to these things.
Okay, so just moving on, this is touching on the environmental safety of poisons. When someone puts out rat eggs to kill a rat or a mouse, often what times happens, the owl eats the rat and the owl dies. We want the owls because they do kill rats. I'm not a big fan of rats. I'm a conservationist and I can say that, so I don't mind. And then when people put Temec out, most of the time they're putting Temec out to kill jackal, but what also goes for the bait? Maybe even your hunting dogs, maybe your family pets. It kills dogs, if not something else. The next one is any kind of other poison. If you're using 1080, if you're using carbonates, albucarb, cyanide. We put it out for jackal and roycup, but what do we end up killing? Our eagles, our vultures. It happens often. And people say, no, 1080 doesn't have a knock-on effect. We haven't been able to prove that in the South African context, because 1080 was made in Australia for those animals. Anyway, then we use Dazzle to kill blowflies. Remember what eats the ticks and everything off the back of an animal? An off-picker. And then we end up poisoning them. So what does legislation say about using poison for problem animals? Compound 1080 is only allowed in toxic collars. Toxic collars are filled with 1080. They may only be used selectively to reduce predators causing damage. No other pesticide or poison may be used in these collars. They may only be filled and provided by individuals with the necessary permits in terms of the Hazardous Substances Act. And if any predator killed with that poison must be buried deep or burned to prevent secondary poisoning. The next thing is the seller of the compound has to have a permit to sell, and you have to have a permit to use. Because if you go and buy this and someone finds out, okay, but you bought it from Tom, Dick or Harry, and they found out you don't have a permit, you can be subject to a very, very big fine. And then the use of registered poison for vermin control. The poison collar containing 1080 is the only chemical that is registered for this control. Although the coyote gecko is also considered legal, it's currently not available and farmers will have to undergo training if it becomes available again. Any other use of 1080 or sodium cyanide is illegal. That means putting it out as a bait is illegal. The use of any poisons like carbofuran, albucarb or methanol is illegal, not only according to the conservation legislation, but also Act 36 of 1947. Here we have no poison bait being used in South Africa. You are not allowed to put bait out in any kind of form. You can't put it out on the ground, you can't put it on the fence. It's illegal to do so, and there's no pesticide registered for killing for predators using a bait. Okay, so sorry for talking so long, but in conclusion, I just wanted to have these couple things up. Choose a method that works for you on your farm. Some methods will work in the flacter, but it doesn't work on the mountain. Some methods will work for your staff that you have, if you have 2 or 3 staff, but it might not work on a farm where you're the only person that's working, if you don't have staff. So choose a method that works for you, that can benefit your family and your farm. Another thing is familiarize yourself with legislation and poisons, because the more you know about the legislation, the more you can do something about. Predation management isn't always based on hunting the animal. And that's why Tom is here, and that's why everyone else is here, to chat about different ways of managing predation without having to kill them. Because most of the killing methods is time consuming, it costs money, it takes you away from home, it's difficult. And how often are we winning? So adaptive management is key. If the jackals are adapting, if the caracal are adapting, we need to adapt in a way to control their adaptation. And that's all. Thank you very much.
Is nie wel groot geword. So ek het ook toe ek jong was, jakkals se rooi katte, bobiane, blauwalpe geskiet. Ek's nie 'n greenie nie. Ek werk met baie boere in Limpopo en in die noordelike gedeeltes van Suid-Afrika. En ek het nou 10 jaar ervaring met hulle te werk. En ek werk ook met baie ander spesies wat baie groter skade maak as jakkals en die rooi katte. Maar ek moet net vir julle sê voordat ek praat, ek's nie 'n spesialis in hierdie omgewing nie, ek ken nie die Karoo nie. Ek gaan met julle deel metodes wat ons gebruik in die noordelike deel van Suid-Afrika wat wel vir ons daar werk. En dalk kan julle dit ook hier aanpas. Maar ek is 'n Engelse van der Merwe. My praatjie gaan maar in Engels wees, maar jy mag maar vra in Afrikaans vra asseblief. Ek sal hulle in Afrikaans antwoord. En ja, maar kom ons gaan aan. Have you got a glass?
Yes.
Alright, so let me just put this down a little bit there. Just put it down.
A little bit more.
Alright, ladies and gents, we're here to talk about carnival conflict, and I know it's a big problem in Consolvent. It's been a major issue in this area for many, many years. I mean, we've been dealing with jackal and caracal in this area for a long time. I'm not a specialist in this area, I don't know this area well, but I know that you guys are suffering from big losses. It's time for us to start working together to come up with solutions that will help you, that will increase your profits. And this is a major problem. I mean, we are competing on the same areas with jackal and caracal. You are losing livestock on a daily basis, a lot of you. And it's time to start working together to seek alternative solutions. But yes, these do affect negatively on your pocket at the end of the day. And we need to work together with you guys to come up with solutions that help us both. But this is also exacerbated by human population growth. There's less and less space for these animals to exist. Also the exploitation of natural resources, which is becoming a big issue in the Karoo, is contributing to this. So there's less and less space for these animals to exist, and that leads to more and more competition with humans and more losses for you guys as farmers. Carnivores that we are concerned with, obviously I work for the Endangered Wildlife Trust. We're mostly concerned about endangered carnivores. I know your problems here in the Karoo mainly deal with jackal and caracal. They're not endangered species. I work up in Limpopo mostly, and there we're concerned with specifically endangered species such as the African wild dog. We've only got 6,000 left in the whole of Africa, and cheetah only 7,000 left. In South Africa we've only got 450 wild dogs. We've only got 1,200 cheetah, and it's very important to keep them and increase their numbers. Up in Limpopo I work a lot with farmers up there who have huge losses, particularly to leopard. But we have had some successes, and I'm hoping to deal some of those successes or share some of my knowledge with you guys with some of the methods that we're using to lessen those losses. But yeah, conflict is also exacerbated by mesopredator release. For those that don't know, this area used to be home to 300, 400 years ago. Cheetah, leopard, lion, they were all here. And those larger carnivores used to control the smaller carnivores. Unfortunately, they're no longer in the ecosystem. We still have some leopard in the area, but there's no more free-roaming cheetah around, no more lion. So it's almost given these smaller carnivores a much bigger yield where they can really start affecting numbers of particularly livestock. We've also introduced livestock into this area, and they're not used to these predators. And over hundreds of years, I mean, jackal have been killing natural prey in this area for hundreds of years, and for them to kill livestock is really easy. So it's really a problem that we need to resolve. Also, as Daniel said earlier, I'm not a PhD student in jackal reproduction, but I do know that jackal live in family groups, and there's always a dominant pair in an area. And if those jackal aren't causing any problems, then you shouldn't shoot them, because other jackal are going to move into that area that might start predating on livestock. So I know also, when you kill a dominant pair in an area, very often all of these subordinate or less dominant individuals all come onto heat at the same time, and then they all reproduce, not only the dominant pair in that area, and that results in a lot more jackal, which can cause exacerbated problems for you guys and more stock losses. Alright, sunrise in the Karoo. By the way, we had a beautiful sunrise this morning. It was lovely, but this is what you guys are faced with. It's horrible. I mean, there are lots of losses to predators, and it's a problem that we as conservationists have been trying to solve for hundreds of years. In the Karoo, you guys have been trying to get rid of jackal here for hundreds of years. We haven't got it right yet. So it's up to us to come up with alternate methods and help you guys, new solutions, whatever else is coming onto the market, or increasing prices for the animals that you guys are producing. But some of the methods that are used, the use of herders, some people use it very, very successfully. I know here in the Karoo you guys have got massive farms, so it's often very, very difficult. But some people are using herders quite successfully to reduce livestock losses. Also, electric or jackal-proof fences has been very successful in certain areas. I know here in South Africa we've got very many mammal species that like to dig, and I don't know if I know in some of the areas down in the Western Cape we've reintroduced warthog, which are causing huge problems and digging holes under a lot of fences. So it's very, very difficult to use and maintain fences. It's also very, very expensive. Oh, sorry, up there. And then bells, collars, and lights. These are some methods that farmers use, but you know they don't last a long time. I did a project in the Northern Cape where we started using lights on sheep's heads over there, and it worked very, very successful for the first 3 months. We had no predation, but after a while the jackal became used to them, and there's dinner tonight. And so, I mean, they do use, you need a combination of methods, and you need to see what works on your specific farm. There's no one solution fits all for farms, and every farm is different. So it's quite a complex problem to solve. Also, early warning systems. There's new technology using elsewhere in South Africa as well, where people are putting collars on animals, and whenever they are distressed or moving funny, it sends you a notification on your cell phone where that's happening, and you go and look there. Very often you'll find a jackal chasing your livestock, which does work very well. It's very, very expensive though, but it does work well. Capture cages. A lot of farmers come to us and say, why don't you just capture the animals and move them elsewhere? That's not a solution for us. You know, very few people know that we don't have that many protected areas left in South Africa. Only 12% I think of South Africa is formally protected. And there are already predators in those areas that have established territory. So we've actually caught a lot of leopard and moved them into reserves, put a collar on them, think everything's fine, no problems. A week later we'll find that leopard has been killed. There's dominant established territories of other leopards in those areas. So to put it in an area where we think safe, it's not often safe. And we lose the predator, and we've got a lot of effort to go and capture and relocate that animal, and we've lost it a week later. So it's not a solution. Also, relocation to other areas. When there are other areas available, where we've had a reduction of predators in those areas, we do it. But it's not always an easy solution. We need permits to move animals, so it does take time. And very often a farmer will phone us and say, I've got a cheetah in a cheetah in a cage trap. Come move it. I cannot go there and move it immediately. I need permits to move it. And it's as I said earlier, it's not a long-term solution. Then there is lethal control, use of gin traps, poison, hunting. Daniel elaborated on that earlier. They can be used successfully. We don't advocate it at the EWT, but it can be used successfully. And if that's the best method for your farm, by all means, don't use it. But particularly with gin traps and capture cages, very often you don't capture the animal needed. And also there's a lot of bycatch. I've pulled many more porcupines out of gin traps than anything else. They're unselective and they don't always solve the problem. And it's also time consuming and very, very expensive. As I said earlier, I work a lot in Limpopo and a lot of people capture carnivores out there, and it's actually illegal. It's illegal to set a cage trap in Limpopo to capture leopard or cheetah. Very often they phone us and they say, they're doing the right thing. They don't want to kill these animals, but it's very difficult for us to move and find these animals home every single day. And another thing that people don't understand is, you know, we cannot just put all our large carnivores into one single reserve. If you look at the genetic rules, you need a minimum population of 1,000 mammals to ensure genetic integrity for animals to continue living into perpetuity. There isn't a single place left in Africa where we have more than 1,000 cheetah. Right, the most cheetah we have on a single reserve in Africa is Kruger National Park, 412 cheetah in the last census. Now, if we had to leave those cheetah in Kruger National Park, evolutionarily they would become extinct. They will be inbred. Alright, they won't survive. That's why it's very important to have large carnivores in between these areas, to make sure that there's gene flow between smaller populations so that those animals can survive into perpetuity. Alright, and then obviously there are your lethal methods. These are used quite often and a lot in South Africa, but as I said earlier, they are not a long-term solution. Yes, they might temporarily solve your problem. Gin traps catch many more and other species and poisons. I mean, to be honest with you, if you look at our vulture numbers worldwide, they've decreased by 95% over the last 50 years. Now, vultures are your cleanup crew. They take away, they clean up animals, they prevent disease, and it's very important to have them in ecosystems. If we are poisoning them and killing them, you're going to have increased disease on your farm, and it's going to lead to more and more problems. There are also these horrible traps that are unselective. Recently, not long ago in Limpopo, there was a child that climbed through a fence and he was killed one of those. So they are very, very dangerous. And then poisons. There's very few people who use poisons responsibly, and that's the major problem. Look, you can use it effectively, but to us it's not a solution. Right, I'm not going to play the video, but this is a video of a jackal that has been poisoned. It's quite distressing, it's really not nice to see. And here is a vulture still feeding on raw meat before it's even ingested the meat instead. Alright, we can't, and the stuff like this we can't let the press see, because it's going to affect your guys' businesses and it's going to take money away from your pockets. So we need to come up with alternate solutions. Alright, as I said earlier, capture, relocation and lethal controls are expensive. They're not long-term solutions and it never solves the problem. You have a predation event on your farm. It removes the predator temporarily. You have no more losses for a month or two. However, it forms a vacuum. A new predator moves in. You have increased predation, increased losses, increased intolerance, and increased lethal control. This is a very sad cycle. We've been in a lot of areas in South Africa for many, many years, and it's actually not solved the problem. So it's a predator war, there are no winners. Alright, I'm here today to just chat to you guys about one of our most successful non-lethal methods of controlling predators in South Africa. And it's a project we started many, many years ago, but it's the use of livestock guardian dogs. I'm not saying it's a solution for all farmers, but definitely in the areas that I've worked with, particularly particularly in the northern parts of South Africa. This is our most successful method. Alright, livestock guardian dogs originated in Turkey about 2,000 years ago. They were originally used to protect sheep from wolves and bears in those areas. And there are many breeds that are used today. We've got Packbashers, Kangaroo, Great Pyrenees, Anatolians. We've even got a local breed in South Africa called the Maluti, which I'm going to tell you a little bit more about. But this method was brought to Namibia in 1994, and it was trialed there. And now Namibia have got actually over about 700 dogs which they are using very successfully there, and it's going very, very well. We started the project in South Africa in 2007, and we've placed nearly 250 dogs since 2007. Alright, as I said, in our program, we use two different breeds. We use the Anatolian, which is the big dog on the left-hand side. These originate from Turkey. Particularly, we use them against larger predators, leopard, wild dog, cheetah, and then we've also got our local breed, which originates from Lesotho. They're the same thing as the dogs in Turkey, and they've been using that breed in Lesotho for many, many years. Probably the biggest advantages of the Maluti breed, they work just as successfully. If we look at our data and our success of these dogs reducing predator losses, there's very little difference between the Malutis and the Anatolians. Probably the biggest advantages of using a Maluti dog, it's a local African breed, it's more resistant to your diseases, your parasite loads, and it's a lot cheaper to implement. Malutis can survive on almost anything, any kind of dog food. Your Anatolians are more susceptible to cancer, which is a bit unfortunate. Also, we've got a lot more problems, hip problems and stuff with these bigger, larger body dogs. And you know, you can actually train any dog to be a livestock dog. I've even got Jack Russells that have been successfully used in some parts of South Africa as livestock dogs. Alright, what type of livestock do we put dogs with? In the areas that I work with, we put them with goats, sheep, the Dorper and Domara breeds, cattle, Ngunis, Brahmans, Simmentalas, and we've even started putting them with game. We put them with a couple of Nyala and a couple of other high-value species, and they're also working very, very well. Obviously, these dogs work better with herding breeds. So if you've got a breed of herding breed like goats, for example, the dogs stick together with those goats and they work a lot better. When you've got Dorper sheep on a huge property, 3,000 hectares, and you've got 5 here, 10 there, it's very difficult for these dogs to control such large areas. Alright, what predators are we concerned with? You know, a lot of South African predators come or live outside of protected areas. Almost 60% of our cheetah occur outside of formally protected areas, but mainly we're concerned with your more endangered species, your African wild dog, cheetah, and leopard, but also with other species. And these dogs do a very good job to prevent predation of any predator on livestock. Right, our program, perhaps I should tell you a little bit more about how it works, but we provide the best livestock guardian dogs from proven working grounds. We only source dogs from farmers that we've been dealing with for many years, or breeders, and these dogs have got proven working lines, they've got the right characteristics, and they do a fantastic job. We also provide husbandry, food and veterinary cares when we work with the farmers for a year, for the first year, and after the farmer is happy with the dog becomes his responsibility. There's also a contract signed between the farmer and the Endangered Wildlife Trust that the farmer won't use any lethal control means while the dog is in place. He won't put poisons out because very often they poison the dogs. Unfortunately, I've had a few dogs that have been killed going onto neighbours' farms, which does happen. And then, so we ensure that they don't use any lethal means for that year. And if they do that, we give them the dog for free. Alright. The reason why we've been so successful is because we've placed so many dogs. We actually go to every single farm on a monthly basis, and we ensure that the training and the dog food is delivered and all the ectoparasite control is delivered, and we make sure that there are no behavioral issues with the dog. It's very difficult to buy an Anatolian and place it and think it's going to work. You need to train that dog. We've trained over 230 dogs now over the last 15 years, and I like to think that we've got it down to a T, but still, not every dog is cut out to be a successful livestock guardian dog. On average, 82% of our dogs develop into successful livestock guardian dogs, but it's not every dog is cut out. And you know, what is our aim at the end of the day? Is to implement non-lethal predator management on livestock farms as a long-term solution. You know, it takes probably 3 to 4 months of quite a lot of effort to train your dog, and after that you get 10 years of return from that dog. That dog will work for you for 10 years' time. Alright, so it's not a big, so there is an initial investment in time, and after that you've got a farm where you've got 10 years worth of hopefully no losses. And then obviously the purpose is to develop predator conflict-free corridors within farming areas to allow the free movement of predators between core conservation areas. Obviously I said earlier, you know, even if we have leopard in a reserve, if you leave those leopard on the reserve, in the long term they will become extinct. It's very important for predators to move through these areas to promote gene flow between the core conservation areas. And then obviously to promote the conservation of vulnerable and endangered species. Alright, raising and training a livestock guardian dog, it's not very complex. These dogs have got such a strong affinity to bond with whatever they are put with. We hand these puppies out of between 6 and 12 weeks old, very, very young. In the first phase, or the juvenile stage, we put them in a small area, a little camp, probably 100 meters by 100 meters, but every farm's different, you know, you use what you've got, and we put them in a small camp with 6 to 8 sheep or goats, or 2 to 3 melkkoeie or beeste, and those dogs start to bond between those animals. It is important to feed those animals during the time, and it's obviously important also, you get some very aggressive breeds, and they're very aggressive to these young puppies, so you must ensure that there's an area where these dogs can get away from them, because they can get killed at a young age. So that's very important, particularly within broody cattle. Alright, and then from 11 to 16 weeks, we then move these dogs to a larger area, generally about a hectare, and we start watching them and to see if there's been a bond formed between the dog and the livestock. If the dog is walking around with the livestock, you know that that bond is secured, and you can start letting your dog go out into the wild, or onto the farm, should I say. And it's very, very easy to see. It's quite cute. These dogs start playing with the livestock, and they just become one of the herd. It's very, very lovely to see. And then obviously between 16 weeks and a year, we start letting these dogs go out into the field. They go out with the cattle. A lot of people, and every farm's different. A lot of people say, yeah, but my goats I move them from camp to camp. You can move these dogs from camp to camp. As long as you're feeding them once a day, they are fine. And they bond with that specific group of goats or sheep or cattle that you put them with. And they do an absolutely fantastic job. Alright, but another question is, how do these dogs work? A lot of people ask that. They don't go and kill jackal all the time, they don't go and chase them. They've got such a strong bond to the livestock that they bond with, that anything that comes into an area, the livestock are generally the first animals to let the dog know that, listen, I'm uneasy, there's a predator here, and the dog picks it up very quickly, because it'll half the time be sleeping under a tree. Once it senses that there's something in the area, the dog starts barking. And that predator moves out of the area because he realizes there's another canine here and I might be in trouble, so he rather moves off and kills natural prey. Every now and again we have had altercations of dogs fighting with leopards. I had one just last month of a leopard and one of my Anatolians getting stuck into each other. Fortunately the dog survived, and we tried to keep it at home away from its livestock so it could heal, but we couldn't. It wanted to go out with its sheep again, so we had to let it go. And it did an absolute fantastic job. And still to this day on that farm, since we put a livestock guardian dog, they haven't lost a single animal. And then what's also very important is you cannot at the beginning place 2 dogs on one farm together, because the dogs bond to each other and not to the livestock. So that's very important. If you place more than one dog, you must make sure you place them on opposite sides of the farm or away from each other, because as soon as you place them together, they bond to each other and not to the livestock, and that becomes a problem. From about 12 months on, you can put a second dog in to learn from the first dog. It does work, but you must just watch that they make sure that they are moving with the livestock and not only with each other. Then it's also very important to sterilize the dogs. particularly the males, because they've got a roaming behavior. If you don't sterilize them at 6 months of age, they start looking for other dogs, and then they stop working. So it's very, very important that you do need to sterilize the dogs. Alright, so effectively we've placed 238 dogs in South Africa since 2006. We've effectively secured almost 700,000 hectares of farmland with predators and livestock in our own freely. And we do have problems in implementing livestock guardian dogs. Snakes are a big issue. Less of an issue with our local breeds, the Malutis, they're more resistant to snake bites. And very often if you do have a dog, please, you've got to let your neighbours know that they don't shoot them. I've had a number of dogs that have been shot over the years. And then you can't implement them with every single breed. Obviously they're more effective. We have placed them with dwarfer sheep very, very successfully, but not as successfully with herding breeds. And farmers' wives are a big problem. They think you cannot place a little 6-week-old puppy in the felt and let it survive there, so they bring it home the first night, the second night, and it becomes a house dog. So we've got to watch out for them. Probably our biggest problem. But where we place them across the South Africa, in the Waterberg in particular, Magaliesberg, Soutpansberg, the Northern Cape, Mpumalanga, KwaZulu-Natal, and the Free State. Very, very successfully. Here's typical behavior. When I go and visit a livestock guardian dog, it'll sense that there's something new in the area and it'll come out, check you out, start barking at you. And I've been bitten by a number of dogs over the years. They are very, very protective over their livestock. And that's another big added benefit about these dogs. They are very, very good for stock theft. Alright. I've had people trying to load sheep and these dogs are with them and they couldn't. The dogs were getting too quick. Unfortunately, we've had a few that have been shot as well by these stock guys who've been stealing them. But they are very, very, very good for stock theft. Alright, and do our livestock guardian dogs work? Why is our project so successful? I think, it's very difficult, and where livestock guardian dogs have got a bad rap is because people don't have the knowledge to implement them. And when behavioral issues do start becoming a problem, they don't know how to fix those problems. Alright, we do use shock collars. Many people are against shock collars, but if your dogs start chasing livestock, you use a shock collar. But it's very important that you utilize that properly and don't overuse it. It only takes 2 shocks, and I promise you the dog will never chase livestock or feed or bite livestock ever again. Alright, and we've got 15 years of experience and we've got an extensive guideline that I'm happy to share with anyone. Should you want to read it, I've got an Afrikaans version, I'm happy to send it out, and I'm very happy to share that with you guys. And if you guys are thinking of starting one here, or if you want to start, I'm very happy to capacitate Danielle to start using these animals. They're really, really the most effective solution, particularly in the areas that I've been. On average, after placing a livestock guardian dog, we've had a 96% reduction in stock losses on that farm. Alright, that's the best success rate we've had with any method that I've been using over the years. And on average, 82% of dogs develop into successful at working. It's not covered for every single dog, and there are often problems in training them, but most of the dogs have been placed. So more or less 4 out of every 5 dogs become a successful livestock guardian. And they can, our Malutis work up to 15 years, and our Anatolas up to 10 years. Alright, one of the projects that I was involved with a number of years ago was in the Northern Cape. We started a green labelling initiative, so this is my last slide, up in the Askam and Kleinbachn area, which I think is quite similar to here. I haven't worked in this area before, I'd love to. But anyway, so we started a project at the end. It's something to think about, guys. If you are not using lethal control on your farms, and we can come up with an accreditation scheme, I want to give you an example. There's the badger-friendly labelling scheme, or badger-friendly project that we implemented in South Africa in 2002. Farmers and beekeepers were killing badgers at a huge scale. Badgers went onto our endangered species list. They were highly, highly persecuted by a lot of farmers. They were causing a lot of damage, particularly in the Western Cape. We came up with a method to lift the hives off the ground, and by lifting them 1.5 meters off the ground, the badgers no longer had access to these beehives. They couldn't access the bee or get into the hives and destroy them. And it was a very successful project. So we started then auditing these farmers, and every farmer who was badger friendly, we started giving them a little sticker to put on their products. and retailers bought into this. And Woolies still to today only source badger-friendly honey, and it provides an increased price on your honey, so you're getting more money for your product, which is something to think about. Maybe we should start doing this with predators as well, to increase the value of your predators, get big, large retailers to buy in, and at the end of the day, you'll be getting more money that you can tolerate some of more of the losses that you're experiencing. So it's something to think about, and definitely worth trialing in the future. So we must come up with methods like this. We need to think out of the box to solve these problems as well. But yeah, in the Northern Cape, we also placed Maluti dogs, and we're very, very successful there. They did a great job. I had one farmer, in fact, in the Ascom area, 50,000 hectares. I don't know how many sheep he had. I think he had over 50,000 head of sheep. He'd been struggling with predator problems for many, many years, and it was quite interesting chatting to him. And how he solved his predator problem. He'd been shooting them in the evening for many, many years. He even had a team. But then he got 2 bushmen to start working for him. And every time he lost a sheep, he just sent those bushman trackers to find out which was the problem animal. And now he shoots 5 or 6 jackal a year, and that's solved his problem. He's got plenty of jackal on his farm, but he's taking out the problem animals, not all the animals. So that's worked very, very well. Also, lately we've been using alpacas. Alpacas come from South America. We've been actually using them very, very successfully. They're a lot easier to implement. They eat the same feed as any livestock. And we've now placed, it's only 8 alpacas, but they're working very, very successfully. Big benefits of alpacas. They're quite costly at the beginning, but you don't need to feed them. You can leave them in the farm with your animals. They've got very, very good eyesight, and I'll tell you, one of the farmers who placed one of these alpacas with me said to me, we placed it, and about a month later he phoned me and said, you won't believe what I've just seen. My alpaca chased the jackal through my fence into the neighbour's farm, and my neighbour had an ostrich carried on chasing the jackal into another farm. So they do also work very, very effectively. It's something we're looking more into now, placing more of these animals. But if you don't have the capacity to look after dogs, then alpaca might be an option for you. But that's all I have to say. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed or learned something from my talk, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Baie dankie vir die geleentheid. Dankie Bonnie. Daar is nie nuwe plan nie. Maar dit wat ek weet het ek by boere geleer. Tydens my voorlegging as jy 'n vraag het, steek jou hand op. Mense kan hy om 'n goeie vraag te vergeet. En ek weet ook nie alles nie, maar ek ken mense wat dit kan antwoord. Right. Ek werk te Burberg met Quandra Wools, hoofsaaklik Quandra Wools, Burberg so byshop. So ek is in die wolbedryf van 2000 af, ja. So ja, van so opstaan ek in 'n kraal, ek eet stof en ek hoor wat die boere gesels. Right, wat is die grootste beperking? Ons almal bly in 'n ekstensiewe wêreld, so ons grootste tekort is water. Maar ek wil 'n bietjie 'n ander hoek op water sit. Damme, krippe. Ons het van boorgate sink, die manier wat ons water vir 'n dier aanbied. So, wat baie belangrik is ons verspreiding in kampe. Hoe beter waters in 'n kamp versprei is, hoe beter. Ek het baie op 'n plaas gekom in die Wes naweke en ek het nie net baie toe verloor die mense die grond en man anders koop het en 'n werk nog steeds daar. Dit is skielik verander die vlak, die skaap op baie plase. Skielik is hulle vet, daar was altyd maar lammers. En al wat daai ouens gedoen het is, hulle het 'n stuk in 'n boorgat waar daar was, heel gemaak en water versprei. En ewe skielik het die skape die kampe baie beter. Water in die dam is koud. Water in 'n tank is lou. En ek praat van diep somer, winter is geen probleem. As jy by 'n krib kom en daar lê skaap en daar's nie skade weer of 'n lekbak, dan lê hulle daar waar hulle gat vol is vir warm water. Dis 'n baie eenvoudige ding. My oupa het my jare lank geleer water. Dis uiters belangrik. 'n Skaap wil koue water drink, veral 'n mariene skaap. 'n skaap wat wil dra, hy is vol nonsens oor water. So moenie dit miskyk. Ons het diere wat droogkos moet benut. Die enigste manier hoe hy van droogkos iets maak, is as hy genoeg water het, lekker water. Ons kan nie koue water hê in die dam of dan nou lou water in die tank en dan 'n pyp wat in die son lê en dan in die krib kom. Daai water is vuurwarm aan. Hy pyp moet begrawe wees.
So daai warm of koue water is net so dit met die mikrofoon.
In die pen. Dis te donk dit. Wat hy skaap doen met warm water is hulle lê tot vanaand hier daar en dan sy hulle dan doen. Hulle wag vir die water afkoel. Hulle sal skaap self weer om vroeg in die oggend. Maar die pyp wat van die dam af na die krib toe loop, moet dik wees. Die bolwel wat gooi moet dik wees. As jy dink jy het goeie krib, dan kry jy jou bees. Kyk hoe breek hulle krib as die water voorsiening nie vanaf genoeg is. Skaap drink 5 liter, het bees drink 50. Ek wil dit nou hê. Maar ek kan nie antwoord oor die mikroorganismes. Ons gaan moet 'n slimmer mens wees. Right. Ons het baie byvoegings wat ons kry. Wat werk die nuwe ding uitgebring op die boost. Daar is nie sulke hoë vlakke van vitamine A nie, as jy nou vir julle wys. Aminosure is baie goed vir anders. Butiraat in vir spysvertering. Lecithin wat die opnames van sekere nutriënte verbeter. Die tegnologie wat deesdae in ek sê vitamines en aminosure en daai tipe goeders in hardloop is ongelooflik. Ek dink die navorsing wat kom van die melkkant af in hoofsaaklik uit Nederland is skrikwekkend. Ek is baie opgewonde om te sien wat die voedingsouens vir ons in die toekoms nog gaan bring. Right. So, ek sê altyd die tweede tekort in die brood is vitamine A. Want vitamine A kom in plante voor wat grasgroen is en die Karoo het baie min van dit. Daar's baie voortye wat ons regtig 'n lowergroen veld. So ons diere loop met 'n kroniese vitamine A. As jy vinnig kyk, hy vorige slide wat jy gewys het op die boost, as jy nou dit doseer soos ek sê, jy moet dit meng, dan gee jy 8000 eenhede. Oudtshoorn Gold, as jy doseer soos ons sê, 90000, Vita A plus 120.000 en wat, as jy gaan vitamine A inspuit, 500.000 internasionale eenhede. Die skaap het 90.000 nodig in 'n maand, dis min of meer wat hy gebruik. Kom ons praat om boere som 100.000. Daai is hopeloos, maar is genoeg om kom ons begin weer voor by vitamine A. Vitamine A word in die lewer gestoor. Dis 'n olievitamien, so is nie iets wat hy sommer net maklik gaan urineer nie. Hy kan dit oor lang periodes berg op. So die positiewe ding is as jy nou 6 maande van groen gehad het of 3 maande van groen, gaan hy 'n hele paar maande in die droogte. Die probleem wat met ons langdurige droogtes gebeur is, hy raak uit vitamine A. Vitamine A begin alle ensiemereaksies in die liggaam, in 'n herkouer is daar duisende van. Alle ensiemereaksies begin daar van die lewer af. En vitamine A is die taxi. Ek voel as hy die sink moet enige plek in vat, dan is vitamine A, hy ry saam met vitamine A so hy vat dit na al die plekke toe waar dit belangrik is. Ek sê nou vir julle is in ons droë areas, dis die enkel faktor wat die grootste verskil gemaak het in die lewe. Right. Jou natuurlike vitamine A wat van visolie afkom, die orale goed wat ons in, die natuurlike een neem baie goed op. Volgens Dr. Jacobino. Jou plastic vitamine A's, wat baie in het, neem nie so goed op. So jy kan heel waarskynlik net 'n 60 of 70.000 eenhede aan kry nie. Right. As jy hom inspuit, gaan hy swind. Hy word opgeneem. Nou, wanneer ons in droogte is, moet jy altyd vir jouself vra, hoeveel plantmateriaal is beskikbaar? Wat is die kwaliteit en die voedingswaarde van die beskikbare plantmateriaal? En wat is die smaaklikheid van daai beskikbare materiaal. Gaan die diere dit eet. So, as 'n plant droog raak, nee, dan om homself te beskerm, dan plaas hy al hoe meer tannine in sy blare. Okay? En daai gekonsentreerde tannine bind met die proteïen, en daai proteïen is dan nie meer so beskikbaar vir die dier. So hy vrede dit, maar hy vrek nie af van dit. Jare terug die koeroes gevrek in die Kreerwiltuin van tannienvergiftiging. Nee? Die koeroe se pens kan dit nie optel nie. Baie interessant, renosters vrek way back in Karoo Nasionale Park die koeroes ook so doodgegaan. Dik pens gevreet, hulle vreet die hele tyd doringboomblare, maar hulle kan vanuit doringboomblare niks omsluit. Maar die renosters wat daar was, die swart renosters, is nie een van dood. Want hulle het afgegaan van die doringboom af van ander plante begin vreet. Want 'n renoster het hy kan tannien optel. Hy sê vir hom, hier's moeilikheid, jy moet ander plante begin vreet. Natuur is wonderlik. Okay, maar was 'n slim ou in Zimbabwe wat het goed uitgevind het, ek gaan nou vir julle wys. Hierso, daar is die sellepaadjie, daar is die sellepaadjie. Jy kan daar die groen sien en daar die droog sien. Aan hierdie kant is die diere, het hulle, dan is 'n polyethyleen bygekry, brasglas. Daai kant is nog nie verby nie. Dit is dieselfde bosgras. Jy kan, diere is nie geneig om hy sout gaan te wil eet. Hy rivier gaan, hulle wil hom nie eet. Hy staan lekker hier in die dwaika as die afval. Dan is hy groot word. Maar as jy vir hom die vermoë gee om die proteïen te ontsluit, sal hy dit wegvat. Right. So, hoekom werk brasglas? Jy het die polyethyleen glikonaat, né? Jou tannien is mos gebind in die proteïen, die vet kom, hy haal die tannien af, hy bind met die tannien en die proteïen is oorskielik beskikbaar vir die skaap om op te neem. Jy kry twee soorte tannine, die een wat die proteïen bind en die ander een met water oplosbaar, né? So, hy word vrygestel in die darmkanaal. En dan hardloop hy lewer toe, waar hy toksine afgebreek is en dit waar jy dan daai tannienvergiftiging kry. En die PPP-berekenis bind met daai hydroliseerbare tannien en voorkom dat jy vergiftiging kry. Nou baie belangrike ding van PEP of brasglas, daar is geen plek in 'n rumen se pens waar jy dit kan bære nie. So dit moet elke dag beskikbaar wees. Wanneer dit droog is en jy besluit om die tannine in hy veld ontsluit, moet dit of in sy lek wees of in sy drinkwater. In drinkwater sukkel jy met jou konsentrasiebasis, so in my opinie is die enigste manier om dit konstant reg te steeds deur lek. Uit 100 diere gaan jy miskien 5 hê wat jy lek eet nie, so die ander gaan dit ten minste inkry. En dit wil jy oor 'n konstante basis. Elke dag wil jy sy gram in hê om hy magneeteffek te kan hê. Right. Ons volgende groot tekort in die Karoo is spoormineraal. Nou, dis iets waarvan jy elke dag so 'n bietjie nodig het, né? En jy kan nie 'n groot klomp op een slag vat nie, dan raak jy siek daarvan. Jy kan ook net soveel opneem. Hoe meer natuurlik hy spoormineraal is en hoe meer natuurlike vorme is, hoe beter word hy opgeneem. Maar spoormineraal is 'n wonderlike ding. Dit is amper soos iemand die iets beloof, maar jy weet nie of jy dit gaan kry nie. As die spoormineraal vlakke 100% is, dan is daar ons nog geen probleem nie, dan funksioneer die dier 100%. As hy hier by 60-70% kom, dan gaan jy klein bietjie miskien van sy maksimale groei verloor of van vrugbaar. In die tyd wat jy sien, in die tyd waar daar kliniese tekens is van 'n spoormineraal, as die bus lankal verby, dan is dit lankal te laat. En spoormineraal is kompleks, en ek was gelukkig om nie skynat te hê op skool nie, so die wat dit gehad het, en nie daai dingetjie daar staan, julle iets wat aangaan. Die lang en die kort is, alle minerale werk op mekaar in, en daar is sekere minerale wat ander buffer. Als moet in verhoudings met mekaar wees. Anders is die opnames nie reg. Die Karoo het hoë kalsium, Kalsium is van jou grootste buffers. Hy buffer als fosfaat, swaal, koper, die goed werk teen mekaar in. So as die goed nie in verhouding is nie, word dit nie reg opgeneem. Die lekke en die voere wat ons koop, wat klaar gemeng is, die konsentraat, lekker by die koöperasie, het baie goeie formulasies. Daar kom ook al hoe meer spoorminerale wat gebind raak aan 'n aminosuur wat maak dat sy opname beter is. En jy moet onthou, spoorminerale wat jy elke dag so 'n bietjie inneem. So, dit is nie iets wat jy met 'n inspuiting gaan genees. Dit moet deur sy lek, deur sy werk moet. En ons moet dit stukkie vir stukkie aanvul. Okay. Burbeck het een so 'n produk, is Multimin. Daar is nou al ander inspuitbare produkte ook. Jy gee altyd, as jy 'n mineraal gaan inspuit, gee dit altyd saam met vitamine A. Want vitamine A is 'n taxi vir die sink, die selenium en mangaan na die regte gedeelte gaan ry. Jy kan nooit een of die ander een gee. Okay. Wanneer jy 'n spoormineraal inspuit, is daar geen antagoniste wat hom vashou. So dit gaan als lewer. Nou onthou dit van 'n inspuitbare spoormineraal. Dit is nie daar om die spoormineraal status aan te die probleem wat daar is op te los. Dit moet ons met die bek deur die lekke insit op 'n daaglikse basis. Al wanneer jy 'n inspuitbare gaan gebruik is in kritieke stadiums wanneer hy dier ongelooflik baie nodig het. Byvoorbeeld, net voor 'n ooi lam gaan jy spuit. Want as sy lam en hy lammetjie lê daar met die vrugsap, lê 35% van haar spoorminerale lê daar. So sy kry toe so drop. Sy kort bitter baie sink, selenium, mangaan, hy sê dit uit. Voor paring gaan ons haar help, haar spuit dat sy in optimale vlakke van spoormineraal status is, sodat sy optimaal kan ramvat. Ramme gaan ons spuit 3 maande vooruit. Want die mineraal vat omtrent 'n maand om lekker te werk en 'n ram se semen vat 6 weke om te maak. So die semen wat 'n ram vandag stort, 6 weke teruggemaak. So ons moet lank vooruit dink met manlike diere. Okay. Lamtyd is oestyd. Let op vir dooie lammers, let op vir goed wat vassit. Let op vir ongedierte. Lammers wat vassit, baie keer vitamine A tekort. Of dit 'n ram met 'n groot lammerskooi of verkeerde voeding, laatdragtig, wakker wees. Dis alles goed wat ons kan uitsorg. Bitter belangrik. En dis die ding wat ons seker die hardste slaan in die Karoo. Is geboortegewig. As daai lammetjie daar val, daar's baie studies oor gemaak. 'n Lam weeg eintlik tussen 4 en 5 kg. Baie lammers wat ek geweeg het in die Karoo weeg 3,5 kg. Op 3,5 kg is sy kans om te oorleef net so min. As hy in 'n Karoo skaap as hy oor 5 gaan, 5.5, dan kry ons al moeilikheid, dan is dit koeie wat al swaar lam. So ons moet besop vir daai kant ook. Ek verwag dat ons meer lammoeligheid gaan hê in die volgende seisoen as ons weer reën kry, omdat ons oeye se energiestatus baie opgetel het van 'n jaar terug. Dit was my interessant dat ons nie nou al moeligheid opgetel het nie, maar ons sit met oeye wat in hulle lewe nog nie natuurlike veld gesien het soos wat hulle nou het. So wat gebeur het jou raam van jou oë het nie goed uitgegroei nie. Haar bekken is nie so groot wat dit kan wees. Sy short 5 kg op normaal, 2,5 of 3 kg. Haar geboortekanaal is kleiner. Nou kry sy ewe skielik hoofvoeding, 'n lammetjie wat groot groei. Daar's nie spasie vir hy lam om uit te kom. In enige gegewe populasie gaan jy altyd sukkel met 1, 2, 3% van jou populasie wat nie natuurlik kan lam. Om Nico Botha van Britsjaan het vir my gesê, hy sal enige ooi dragtig, maar bring jy vir my 'n ooi met moederseienskap. Bring my 'n ooi wat 'n lam op die veld groot maak en hy lam huis toe. In ons ekstensiewe wêreld is dit ononderhandelbaar. Ons soek oeye wat kan lammers daar op die veld groot maak en in huis toe. En dit alles begin by kos, wat ons vir 7 jaar gehad het, vir 8 jaar, party mense 9 jaar gehad. As jou voeding reg is van die ooi en dit gaan met haar goed, dan is daar druk op haar eier. Die druk op haar eier veroorsaak dat sy haar lammetjie gaan soek, want sy wil die melk uit haar eier uit hê, dit is nie lekker nie. Dit is hoe moederseienskappe in 'n skaap en 'n bok. So hoe beter dit met ons diere gaan, hoe beter die voedingsstatus is, hoe minder moeilikheid gaan ons hê. Baie makliker gaan 'n ooi by 'n lam staan. Jy het die skaap wat hardloop agter lekbakke aan en uit hulle lammes uit hardloop. Dit is 'n maklike som. Ons almal weet dit. As ons voeding reg is, gaan ons genoeg lammers hê. Ons het sterk lammers, ons het lammers wat wil sy, ons het lammers wat maklik opstaan en ons het maas wat hulle kinders soek. Maar enige populasie is daar, as jy 100 maas het, is een die beste en een is die swakste. En ons moet daai beste maas selekteer. En ons moet ons ramme en daai beste maas uit selekteer. Okay, daar is 'n lammetjie wat kwai bring is. Okay, wat ek hier op wil sin speel is, jy kry ooe wat 'n lam skoon maak, hier een is minder, baie skoner as daai, maar nog nie heel skoon. Jy kry ooe wat 'n dooie lam afgooi en maak hom skoon. Dis 'n goeie maat. Dan kry jy ooe wat glad nie 'n lam skoon maak. Die ander ding wat brein beteken is daai ooe het swaar gelam. So die vloeistof binne in die lam, daar's reeds vloeistof binne in sy darm. Dit het afgedruk op. My oupa het altyd gepraat van geil lammers in sy mielies gevoer het. Sommige daai ooe swaar gelam. En die lam is niks geil, die geel is niks met geilheid te waai nie, hy lammetjie kom nie maklik uit. Daar is 'n spierwit lam. Dit is mooi, dis hoe hy moet lyk. Beter as hy lewendig is, maar as jy 'n dooie lam kry, maak baie seker, kyk op sy hoefies, nee. 'n lammetjie het 'n coating, is so geel vliesie wat daar sit. As 'n lam geloop het, binne 'n paar minute, dan is hy coating weg. As jy 'n lammetjie kry en hy het daai geel coating hierso oor sy hoefies, dan het daai lammetjie nooit opgestaan met 'n drink. As jy by 'n dooie lam kom, sny hom oop. Kyk sy melkpens. As sy melkpens vol melk is, dan het iets anders om dood te maak. Want dit was nie kos. Want die lammetjie is dun. Hy het nie gedrink aan sy ma en sy ma het hom gelos. Sy het hom dalk skoon gemaak, maar sy het uit hom en hy weggeraak. Ons moet weet waar die skade lê. Is die lam gevang? Die jakkals het hom geëet. Waar is die bloed?
Met pens.
Hier is nergens bloed. Daar is 'n klein bietjie wat uit die oog uit gegaan het, net maar dit is bitter min waar die kruis op geval. As 'n lewendige dier gevang raak, dan klop sy hart. Dit is mos so. Jou hart klop, dan is jy lewendig, as jy staan as jy dood. Dus ja, solank jou hart klop, en jy word gevang, en jy word gebyt, dan moet die bloed uit. So, 'n lewendige dier wat gevang is bloedig. Hy is 'n rugvrug. 6 maande. Okay. Daar is ook bloed, daar is vleis, daar is gewone rooikers, daar is die hele blad afgevloei daarvoor. Ja, net interessant. Okay. So, wanneer ons bepaal wat se skade ons het, moet ons presies weet wat die moeilikheid veroorsaak. En ons moet sorg dat ons mense wat vir ons werk, hulle moet daai waarneming vir ons kan bring. Want 'n boer kan ook nie oral elke dag wees. En ek sê altyd, as jy by 'n karkas kom, moet jy wakker wees, jy's 'n speurder. Jy moet eers van buite af kyk en sien wat sien jy. Dink. Is daar hare gepleis? Is daar dalk spore? Nie net instorm en hier's nou 'n karkas gevang. Kyk van ver af. Dan gaan kyk jy binnekant. Kat het 'n stomp bek. Jy moet al die vel afbreek. Hy moet vleis. Hy gaan nie skerp kan ineet. As jy die vel oplig en is onder die vel ingevreem, dan is dit 'n dier met 'n skerp bek. Die jakkals, 'n meerkat, dit baie goed. Onthou, daar's baie diere wat aasop agterna. Dis die gedeelte waar jy van binne kry. En dan 'n groot reël in karkasse is pens in, pens uit. As 'n dier se pens uit is dit 80% van die kere, 90% van die kere 'n jakkals. Soortgelyk. 'n Rooi kat eet die derms.
En ek ken iets sê, dat jy kat op partykeers wil doen, 'n rooi kat op gelyk, is om die pens heel uithaal, en dan hy buite om die stukken, maar dat hy net so los buite lê, maar daar's niks opvreet nie. Alles het die ding wil sleep. Dat hy pens, dit sal net so die los pens, as hy net in die kou breed, kat is dit.
Dis baie interessant. Is dit meer spesifiek op luiperd of beide?
Beide, luiperd en rooi. Die rooi kat minder, maar die luiperd veral sal alles in wil persleep, as dit die pens is. Maar sal dit tevrede, maar sal nie soos dit in
Een stukje eet wees hier.
niks nie.
'n Rooi katjie eet 'n klein mossie, nee. Vreet hy heel op. Daar lê 'n bondel tivere en sy derms lê daar. Sy kop is weg, sy vere is weg. Hulle raak nie na. Ek kan nie vir julle sê oor dit weet. In die dag soos lammersmerk is dit ons nou oordeel self. Ek het ons nou elke dag na kamp gestap en nooit 'n dooie lam gesien nie. En dan as ek die skaap in die kraal en bring, dan kom daar 100 lammers. Nee. So waar was die skade? Want ons kan nie ons oeye scan en dan is my lamverwagting 110 lammetjies van al die dragtig. O ja, as ons 'n tweeling op. En dan merk ek hulle die dag en dan is daar net 80 en dan sê ek die jakkals het al daai lammers gevang. As die jakkals 10 lammers vang, dan moet ek 1 kry. Ten minste. En ek moet weet wanneer hy hulle gevang het. En mense ons moet eerlik met mekaar wees. Dis nie noodwendig net rooi jakkals wat vang. Daar's kleiner jakkals wat ook vang. Daar's ander goed wat ook vang. Daar's partykeer snaakse goed wat vang. So ons moet weet wat die skade veroorsaak. En ons moet dit vroeg weet. Ons moet weet wanneer hy vang. En ons moet daai droë oeye uitkry. Want na weet my oom het altyd het 'n hokkies genaam. Hy het op scandag, as hy 100 oeye gescan het, en as 100 dragtig, het hy 4% afgetrek. So hy het vir homself gesê, daar gaan 96 lam. En dit is normaal. Enigiets tussen 2 en 4 oeye gaan nooit eier, sê maak jy as eier van scan. Nou ek sê as ons ekstensief, want my oom het sy skape bittermooi kos gegee. As ons ekstensief boer met dips en dat so, bietjie bloukom hier en moeilik daar, dan gaan ons baie na aan 10% oeye wat nooit eier maak. En jy kan nou maar die dag as jy sterk is my. Jou belangrikste werk is nie om lammers te merk of oortjies te merk of tatoeëermerk in te sit of 'n dosering te doen. Jou belangrikste werk is om my droë oeye uit te kry. En dan moet jy sien net, want as hy gelam het en sy het 'n eier gehad, dan kan jy nog sien hy. As daar niks beduidend in hy eier is nie, jou lam voor die tyd weggaan. As daar meer as 20% of meer as 10% is, dan het jy moeilik, dan het jy either aborsie of as 'n siekte of jy het 'n baie groot mineraaltekort, maar dan moet ons 'n slim mens inkry om jou te help. Want so kan lammers nie disintegreer. Ons moet weet hoekom raak hulle weg. Alright. Ander belangrike ding is speendag. Hoe swaarder ons 'n jong ooi speen, nee, hoe minder druk is daar op ons om haar te laat kry dat sy weer rampad vorentoe. En dit kom als terug na voeding toe en die konstante, daai eier wat die ooi gehad het, voeding van 6 weke voor sy lam tot speendag. Hoe swaarder hy ooilam speen, hoe minder druk is aan om haar konstante groei te laat groei, hoe vinniger sy op haar paarmassa kom, hoe vinniger kan ons haar ram gee. In ons ekstensiewe wêreld, as jy 'n ooi ram gee voor 18 maande, gaan dit jou byt. Ons het buitevel, ons moet dit benut, ons wil hy jong ooitjie op 32, 33 speen, as dit 35 is dit beter, nie onder 28. Want dan is die druk vir 'n jaar om te groei tot daar, dan gaan ons met lekker kos by. As ons haar op 18 maande paar, dan lam sy weer in dieselfde tyd as wanneer sy aangekom het. As jy gaan push in dierepaar op vroeër maande, hardloop jy in verskillende seisoene in, en in die wêreld wil jy lam as haar kos. Nie andersom nie. Dit is baie goedkoper om ooit te prikkel as om 'n lammer ooit te voer. En dit is jou fabriek. Daai ooi gaan die res van haar lewe gaan sy vir jou lammers. Ek het hoeveel kliënte wat ooi 'n paar 12 maak. In die Karoo is jy nie genoeg kos, die koöperasies is te klein, ek sê nou vir jou. Om 'n jong ooi genoeg te voer dat sy nooit weer oorslaan nie. As jy daar is tye wat hulle goed groei en hulle vat tot 70-80% op 12 maande. Maar daai jong ooi lam presies 6 maande voor as die tyd wat sy aangekom het en sy gaan iewers vorentoe gaan sy weer drop. Want sy was fisiologies nog nie daar gaan drop. Veral in wolskaap. Hier is vleisrasse wat dit kan doen, dan gaan die mense met klippe gooi nie, daar is genuine vleisrasse wat dit kan doen. En sterk vleiskruisings wat dit kan doen. En jou voer moet reg is. Onthou ek praat Karoo eksklusief. Die oomblik as jy in 'n hoë potensiaal area gaan waar jy baie skape in 'n klein area het, dan verander dit heeltemal. Daai mense se kos is te duur, hulle moet vinnig swaai, hulle moet 2 lamseisoene in 'n jaar hê. Dit is heeltemal anders.
Kan ek 'n vraag vra? Dis 'n vraag nie, dis eintlik ook al vir die goed vir die manne wat boer hierso. Ek ken nou nie wolskape baie goed nie. 'n Ou het my 'n storie vertel wat daai keer so hierdie boer. Ek weet nie of dit waar is nie. So van hy boer in Tamaras en hy speen gevat hier sy ooilammers. Die ooilam bly by haar ma. Hy sê hy jag nie jakkals op sy plaas nie, hy maak nie hy nie reg nie, jakkals kom in en uit soos hulle wil. Die ma's weer daai ooilammers om hulle lammers op te pas en hy sê hy het nie verlies nie. Hy praat van 130% speelpersentasie. Nou, ek weet dis vraagtyd sien ek weet nie, maar ek wil maar hoor of enigiemand van so iets gehoor het dat dit so kan werk, dat die jou ooilammers speel, en ander ek sy handeltjies word gespeel, speel dit by ooilammers bly by die ma, en sy volgende.
Daar's baie mense wat so boer.
Okay.
Ek kan nie paas praat sy syfers nie.
Okay.
Lewe hy reg grond.
Ja,
Dit is sy enigste bron van inkomste. Want ek reken hy het op die ram in 1956 bygesit laas. Nooit weer uitgehaal. Jy kan so boer.
Ja, ek wonder maar net daaroor. Dis die eerste keer in my lewe dat ek daarvan gehoor het.
Dit is moontlik. Die meeste ons in die Karoo boer wees. Ja. Hulle is maar daar. Die volgende ding is genetika. Ek werk elke dag met ramme en met stoeterye en dit is net 'n gedagte wat ek wil los. Ons almal boer ekstensief, né? Ons wil hê ons diere moet nie buite werk. Hoe kan ek 'n ram gaan koop by 'n stoetboer wat hulle vet voer en oppas en nie selekteer daar waar ek met my ooe boer? Dit maak nie sin. Gehardheid is nie iets wat jy in 'n fase D toets sien as jy 'n bees voer. Dan sien jy wat is sy voeromset. En dit is presies wat met ramme gebeur. Stoetboere raak net bitter kwaad, want daar's ver meer te veel kleinvee stoetboere wat ramme op hulle groot maak. As jy hom steen van sy ma, dan gaan hy onder 'n dak in of hy staan in 'n voerkraaltjie en daar word hy nou gevoer tot die keerder eendag kom en hom goedkeur in. Tussenin was hy nog op 6 koue opgelos. En hier's nou die beeld wat die ras van vorentoe vat. Die beeld wat my ras vorentoe vat, staan en maak hou daar buitekant.
Sorry, mag ek dit interfereer nou? Is dit nie dalk die geval van die agente? Want jy sê nou iets wat die boer, maar die agent, die KPC, name it, gooi dan na jou ander engel en sê nee, maar daai, want hy verkoop aan hom die goeders, so hy moet jou rammel verkoop.
Ja. Hier, ramkommissie is 'n probleem.
Ek wil sê, maar ek moet dan ek hoop dat as dit daar stoetboere gehad en ander boere. En dan klaar die boere presies wat jy nou sê en sê maar julle stoetboere verkoop julle vetvervoerde kraalgoed in ons. En dan sê die stoetboere, maar as ek hom in die veld verkoop, gaan hy nooit so mooi lyk.
Dan wil jy hom nie koop.
Kan hy hom nie koop. So
dit is 'n boer se probleem. Kry 'n mindshift. Gaan koop by iemand ramme wat boer soos jy doen. Of bou hulle homself as jy nie kan kry. Dan gaan jy beter af. Ons gaan moet aangepaste diere en julle moet onthou net. Kom ons vat Marinus. Marinus was nie. Hulle is eintlik glad nie aangepas. Dit het ons nou 300 jaar gevat. Hoe lank is dit van Marinus af die was en dit is so 20 jaar, 30 jaar na dit het ons dan skaap gekry. Reg. Ja. So hulle sal op 'n ruime tydjie heen en hulle was aan daai tyd klap hier was Afrikaners gewees en hier was Dammeras gewees en hier was aan boksterkte en dis dit. Hier was 'n paar bok. Min van ons skaaprasse is inheems. Die dorper is 'n Persië gekruis met 'n Dorset wat van Europa af. Baie goed aangepas nou, maar ek bedoel hy was nie. So dis interessant. As jy die rande uit gaan vryse per hand, jy kwai koper tot in Sutherland. Koper vergiftig. Skape vrek nou van koper, né? Skape kom uit Europa uit, sy voorafstammelinge wat baie laag is in koper. Die helfte van beeste kom uit die noorde van Afrika uit wat hoog is in koper. So jou beesrasse is baie meer tolerant vir koper as enige skaapras. As jy vir 'n skaap so klein bietjie koper ingee, dan vrek. As jy vir die bees daai selfde hoeveelheid per liggaamsmassa ingee, dan kom dit absoluut niks voor. Jy moet gaan kyk waar ding vandaan kom en hoekom dit so is. OK. So, ons moet met aangepaste diere boer, jy moet aangepaste diere op jou plaas boer. As jy iets moet koop en dit werk nie by jou nie, raak ontslaaf nie. Kyk wat doen jou buurman. Ja, man. Moederseienskappe, né? As jy vir my 'n ooi kan gee, moederseienskappe met 'n bemarkbare produk. Met ander woorde, ek wil ook nie net vrugbaarheid jaag, ek wil nie net besettings jaag. Ek het 'n produk wat ek moet verkoop, dis hoe ek 'n lewe maak. As my diere nie bemarkbaar is, dan sit ek ook met 'n ronde nou, dat gaan nêrens kom. Nou, ek praat nou so van gehardheid. Julle almal ken die storie van die baber. Die ou het 'n baber ons daar in die Valrivier gevang, hy het daar by Parys gebly. Toe wil hy nou eintlik 'n ander soort toeteldier as 'n vis hê. Nou begin leer hy hom om uit die water uit te lewe. So elke dag haal hy 'n bietjie langer uit en langer uit en langer uit. Later kan hy die baber gaan stap. En die mense op straat herken die baber en hy, die baber se naam is Fish. En toe op 'n dag toe glip hy uit sy halsband uit en hy val binne in die Valrivier. En toe verdrink hy. Nou ons gaan nou so selekteer vir diere wat gehard is, dat ons op die einde van die dag 'n skaap kry wat sonder kos klaar. Okay.
Kan jy wat sê?
Ja.
Daai selfe baber het ons nou in die boommoordenaars Karoo gekry nadat die rivier 8 jaar krikdroog was. Haal ons tot 8 en 10 babers uit 'n watergat uit. Hoe het hulle daar gekom en waarvan hulle gekom? Hulle is almal een meter lang. Almal omtrent dieselfde lengte.
Hulle kom uit die dam uit.
So hulle moes uit Vloosveld dam uit stroom opgegaan het, saam met water, ons weet nie, want daar was nie veel water nie. Maar in elk geval, ons had toe die watergate nou begin opdroog, toe lewe al die gate.
Ja. Want daar was die baber.
Daar was dit nog nooit in die lewe, in 60 jaar, 70 jaar was daar nog nie baber wat ek daar gesien.
My buurman kom alles in naam.
Koop hy alles? Ja, en waar kry jy oeye?
Ja, hy doen die buurman wat sê, hoor ek, die eerste naam is die gekry. Ek koop die sommer allerlei naam, maak die saak oeye op. Die buurman papa, dan sê, kom vir my oortjies op. Dan was die regte buurman.
Jou oor moet lekker wees, jy moet luister. Jou oor moet groot wees, jy moet wakker wees. Jou arms moet lank wees. Ek gaan julle 'n storie vertel, nee. Dr. Jan van der Westhuizen het ons so gemotiveer. Julle sien daai en julle sien daai, nee. Die storie van die leeu en die rooibok. So elke dag nou vang die leeu, vang hy van 'n rooibok in die kreerbok. Maar vanaand as hy slaap, dan weet hy. Hy het nou die stadigste een in hy trop gevang. Môre gaan hy bietjie vinniger moet hardloop. Nou die rooibokke, die een wat tweede laaste gehardloop het gister, weet vandag, as hy net so stadig hardloop soos gister, dan vang hulle vandag op. En dit is die loop van die lewe. Moenie sleg voel as ons volgende jaar 'n bietjie harder moet werk of 'n bietjie vroeër moet opstaan. Dit is die loop van die lewe. Right. So, in 1652 was alles lekker rustig hier gewees en toe kom 'n mens en veral verander alles, né? Wild was beperk tot water, hulle het lekker rondgetrek. Hierdie veld is nooit permanent bewy nie. Toe kom die mens en hy sink boorgate en hy span draad. En vandag het ons meer jakkalse as 100 jaar terug. Het gaan nie sleg met die diere. Julle moet my baie mooi verstaan, boere in 95%, ek wil sê 99% van boere is van die mooiste natuurbewaarders wat daar is. Regtig. Ek werk elke dag met hulle. Daar is, jy sal ver gaan om 'n sonnebok te kry. Daar is breinheimes in Torrebes, daar is bosvarke, daar is blauwape, daar sal amper bosveldjies aan. Hulle is net aan die kant tussen Koelsberg en Hanhoef. Hulle was aan die kant die Magaliesberge gewees. Koerus is 'n ou storie. Daar is nou babers in die monnas gehoor. Boere wil nie net goed doodmaak. So, hulle was 100% reg net en toe hulle gesê het, die munt het twee kante. Die realiteit is, boere het skaar. En al die voedingsgoed wat ek in medisyne wat ek nou voor die tyd vir julle gesê het, weet jy, die hele tema loop rondom dit. Hoe mooier ek na my skape kyk, hoe sterker is my lammetjie, hoe laer is die waarskynlikheid dat ek gaan skaar het. Weet, net eenvoudig, as my lam bietjie sterker hardloop as my buurman se, gaan hy definitief minder by my. Die oomblik as my lam beter is as 'n haas of 'n muis, as daar is, dan het ek 'n beter kans. Hoe sterker my lam se drang op oorlewing is, hoe beter is. So in bestuur kan ons baie goed doen om dit beter te maak. Maar die realiteit is, jakkalse van gesonde, vet produserende diere. En hulle word doodgebyt. En dit is waarmee ons elke dag doen. En wie staan pa vir hy skaap? So ek gaan vir julle veevrae vertel. Sien sal op die maar, wat was hy? Martino, né? Wat hy gesê?
Kan jy hier, kan jy daar?
Was hy, iemand van my ouderdom. Right, so. Ek haal môre die jakkalse en die rooi katte uit op 'n plaas. Wys my een boer wat gaan sê hy wil ja boer. Wys my een boer wat vir jou sê dis vir my lekker om jakkalse en rooi katte te doen. Dit is nie lekker nie. Hy doen dit want sy gat is aan die brand. Hy moet 'n lewe maak. Dit is die realiteit. Dit is interessant. In Australië het hulle die Oos-Wes-draad. Draai julle kennis van dit? Dis 'n slegte konsep, is net daai boonste deel waar die anders nou maar moet suffer met die ding. Naby. Ek het vir julle 'n vraag. As ek 'n rooi jakkals en 'n rooi kat uithaal uit die Karoo, kom ons haal dit net op 100 000 hektaar.
En ons hou dit so vir 100 jaar. Wat gaan verander?
Dit is wat dit is.
Gaan dink mooi daaroor. Al die ander goed kan 'n mens redelik billik beheer en al jou kleiner predatore kan als beheer. Die enigste in my opinie is, die mens gaan moet steenbokke en groter wild self beheer. En dis die enigste deel wat waar hulle inkom. En onthou ons het die groot predatore uitgehaal. Right. En hier is nie genoeg vleis vir groot predatore. Kyk wat dit in die park gebeur. Dit klink draad. So, wat my fascineer is, kyk tye verander. Ek 'n klein seentjie was, ek altyd vir my pa gevra, wat plek daai sien jy tronk, hoë drade, so my skelm mense binne te. Nou deesdae sien ek as jy in die stad kom, het jy hoë drade vir die soek mense, om die skelm mense buite te. Eerlikwaar, die enigste langtermyn oplossing wat ek in ongedierte sien, is 'n 5 meter lied. Niks in nie, niks uit. Niks binne wat skade maak.
Dan moet jy weer tramp na iemand toe bring.
Die grootste probleem is, ons het vir jare gedink, ongediertes is 'n plaas en buurman probleem. Met die laaste bietjie data wat ons gekry het, en dit is baie opwondend, 'n bietjie navorsing wat inkom en ewe skielik jakkalse en katte wat gekoller is op plase. Dit is skrikwekkend om te sien hoe dit goed gebeur. Sy rooi kat wat gekoller was in Victoria Wes. Hy's daar vrygelaat. Ons begin daar. Van daar tot daar 30 km. Jy kan nou self besluit hoe jy daar wil inpas. Die kat is hier vrygelaat. Hy was binne 3 weke was hy, of binne 2 weke was hy daar. En daar het hy omtrent vir so 6, 7, 8 maande bly. En toe sê hulle vir ons hy's dood. En dis toe net sy koller wat dood is. En toe nog so 4 maande later toe kom ons om daar. My somme was dit by 90 km. Weet julle deur hoeveel jakkalsproewe is dit?
Yes. Of dood.
Heel jakkalsproewe. Vat die kat wat nieuw gekoller het met hy proef, wat van jakkals geloop het. Hy het 272 km in 3 maande gekomen. Dis reg. Ja. Af Maatjiesfontein, die kant tot daai kant. Ongediertes is nie 'n distriksprobleem nie, dis 'n provinsiale probleem. Ons gaan met baie groter kyk. Daar is nie meer kleinvee Natalie, daar is nie, hulle gaan opraak in Ermelo en Oos-Transvaal. Daar gaan nie meer wees nie, as jy nie goed toemaak met baie groot toeslaapie, dan kan jy nie met hulle opgedaan. En dit gaan nie, die getalle gaan nie afneem. Met die waters wat ons gebring het, en die hoeveelheid kleinvee wat ons hier ingesit het ons vir daai diere kos gegee. Hulle lewe van vleis. Dit bepaal hulle reproduksie. En dit is hoe die hele ketting loop. Kyk hier. Voeding bepaal alles. As die Karoo goeie veld het, dan deel die diere goed aan. Die springbokke kry nie so baie langers aan. En dan, waarom kan ek een springbok oplaai en tussen ander gaan aflaai en dan teel hy? As ek al die ramme doodskiet, en daar is die kosie, dan gaan hulle nie teel nie, dan gaan die hele populasie uitsterf. As daar voeding is, en daar is een ram, sal hy al die ooie dek, en dan sal hy aanwas wees. Daar is nie 'n telefoon waar die een bok die ander bel en sê, kyk jy moet nou teel, daar is 'n maat in graf net doodgeskiet, ons nou die plek vol teel. Dis hoe dit werk. As daar baie kos is in Johannesburg, dan kan daar baie mense bly. Maak môre al die paaie toe en sien hoe trek hulle water. So die hoeveelheid kos wat beskikbaar is, bepaal die populasie digtheid. Ek dink nie ons het 'n lekker idee wat die populasie digtheid kan wees nie. As ons miskien wil weet, moet ons in die parke kyk waar daar vir baie jare geen ongediertebeheer toegepas is, dan praat ek van jakkals en rooiers. En dit is waar. Hulle sorg mekaar uit en die leeu's vang hulle en so vang hulle weerskante.
rooi katte vang baie jakkals. Hulle like. Dit is nie sleg. Maar die totale hoeveelheid voeding wat in daai area is, bepaal hoe hulle gaan produseer. As daar baie kos is, kan daar 'n stel wees op elke 500, 600 meter gaan luister in die bosveld te klink dit in die aande. Die ouens is nie te gepla oor die jakkals nie, daar is hordes. Daar is ook 'n hoë weidingsdraad. Daar is baie kos. Daar is nie 'n skaap nie. Ons het die skape wat maklik vang, is moeilik om 'n kalf te vang. Daar is dele waar hulle weeskallers vang. So, ek kom terug na die rooibokke en die leeu's. As daar baie rooibokke is in die Kleerwiltuin, dan was die leeu's min, dis hoe hulle baie geraak het. Dan gaan hulle weer by mekaar verby. Dan moet die leeu's weer doodgaan, want daar is nie meer kos vir. Nou is ek weer by die man. Hoekom kry ons nie leeu's in Pretoria? Daar was leeu's. Daar was. Hoekom kry ons nie meer leeu's in Kaapstad? Daar was ook leeu's. In feite, daai subspesie het ek almal dood. Want hulle jaag die mense. Die jakkals en die rooi katte jaag met skaap. Dit is die ander helfte van die munster. Baie dankie.